6 possible reasons your husband doesn't want sex like he used to. Why intimacy in your marriage is lacking, and how to get your sex life back on track. There's nothing more frustrating and, truthfully, even more hurtful than when you notice your husband losing interest in sex. When he says, "I'm too tired," or you realise he hasn't initiated sex in several months, your mind almost immediately goes to the worst possible reasons behind it. Is he not attracted to me anymore? Is he unhappy? Is he having an affair? And all of those questions should be considered. No, not to attack him with, but for you to think about yourself. However, it's also important to know that society conditions us to think that it's abnormal if a man isn't wanting sex all the time, and we start to think, if my man doesn't want sex all the time, something must be wrong with me. He doesn't desire me anymore. Oh my God, it's a catastrophe. We're going to end up divorced. But the truth, it's quite normal for sexual intimacy to change over the course of any relationship, especially one that's so long-term like a marriage. The important thing is that if you notice your husband shying away from sex more regularly and that's negatively affecting you as a result, you should identify it as an issue together and work toward a solution. A lack of sexual intimacy is a couple's relationship issue, not just an individual issue. It takes two to tango, right? So it involves both of you. Here are 6 common reasons your husband might be losing interest in sex, and what you can do to reignite the spark. Number 1. Other things have taken priority. Life can get hectic, and as a result, sex can often hit the back burner, especially if you have kids. It might not be top of his list for him to come home from work and initiate sex right away. When you come home at the end of the day and you've worked all day, you're either going to sit down and watch TV or go to sleep, or you could somehow have sex. Sometimes sleep is more preferable. Plus, once you're married and sex becomes less of a novelty, it's common for men to shift their focus and priorities to other things. Think of the cavemen. Once you get your woman, now it comes down to raising babies and then hunting and gathering, right? So maybe you'll have some sex, but the primary focus is now on work. And for a lot of men, work becomes the centre of their life cycle, especially when they're trying to support their families. The key here is normalising the fact that your priorities are bound to change throughout the course of your lifetimes. This is not something catastrophic for your relationship. The frequency of sex and the priority of sex changes and ebbs and flows through the life cycle for both men and women. Get him in the mood. It's still important to take steps to regain sexual intimacy in your marriage, especially if you're working around busy schedules. The first step? Start planning to include sex into your week. You can't have eroticism that's spontaneous. We plan everything else in our lives, so why not this? You have to set time aside. Set a date for Saturday night, maybe, and stick to it, preferably during a time with no kids in the house to avoid possible distractions. Make time, plan and prepare for it like it's something really special, because it is. Number 2, he has a medical condition. Just like women, as men age, their risk for certain health conditions rises, including erectile dysfunction, or ED, and prostate cancer, both of which can have a serious impact on your sex life. ED leads some men to avoid sex altogether, and when it comes to prostate cancer, surgery might be a requirement, which could result in shifting your definition of sex. The very first thing we have to understand is that sex and intimacy is not just about penetrative sex. Sex is not just intercourse. Sex is a lot of things, and it's anything intended for one's arousal. So yeah, you're going to have to adjust things, but intimacy comes in many forms. If your partner gets a diagnosis that could impact your sex life, the first thing you need to do is help make sure they're getting the medical attention they need and provide support. Anyone can help their partner by showing up as much as possible and taking an active interest in their loved one's medical problem. Get him in the mood. Once the medical issue has been addressed, you can start finding new ways to reach a fulfilling level of sexual intimacy by either experimenting on your own or meeting with a couples therapist to help find new methods of eroticism. In those particular cases, if people are getting injured by it, then you might want to seek professional help to help you explore what is erotic and intimate in your relationship after the change in erectile functioning. Number 3, your relationship has become platonic. If you've been in a relationship for 30, 20, 10, or even 5 years, things can start to become familiar. You've gotten into a routine at this point, and that comfort, which is great in some ways, is decidedly not great for your sex life. Familiarity creates a platonicness in the relationship. There's a sexless marriage when you start to get into a situation where you're really just best friends, and all the eroticness has kind of dropped off in the relationship. Chances are, folding laundry and washing the dishes together, although possibly bettering the friendship within the couple, is probably not piquing his or her arousal. If time together is primarily spent watching TV, taking care of household biz, etc., there is nothing to arouse either of you there. Men generally don't walk around aroused. They need stimulation. Get him in the mood. When things feel stagnant, it's important to create an erotic space and bring sexual intimacy back into the relationship. You just can't expect there to be instant eroticism when you've been with the same partner for the last 30 years. Eroticism is just like a walk on the beach. It's something hot and steamy. It's role play. It's dirty talk. It's the way you hold yourself. Technology often provides a distraction away from sex for both you and your partner. So, create a time each day that's totally tech-free. Agree to use this time to get out of your heads and into your bodies. Perhaps go for a walk, dance, meditate, and then go on a date. Number 4, he's stressed. Over the course of any relationship, there are going to be times that are significantly more stressful than others. 2 big causes of that stress: work and money. Being fired is a definite romance killer. Anxiety is sky high. It's common for couples to get into arguments over money or job security, but those little arguments can add up over time to the point where they eventually affect the sexual intimacy or desire within the marriage. You can actually bicker your sex life to death. Men, just like women, will withdraw both emotionally and physically, since every jab creates a mental wound that takes longer and longer to heal. Get him in the mood. In this case, the only way to overcome the issue is to face it head on. If it's distressing, confront and deal with it directly, especially if it's not just a temporary issue. And remember that desire and attraction can come back. Attraction is reactive to conditions. Take a look at the conditions of your relationship, work stress, health, and relationship to technology, and then ask what needs adjusting so that you can feel sexual again. Number 5. He's uncomfortable initiating sex. Believe it or not, some men just aren't that sexual. If the woman's the initiator, she always gets injured by that, because she thinks, well, something must be wrong with me if he's not initiating. But that just might not be part of his erotic blueprint. If your husband has seemingly lost interest in initiating sex, it could be that he's just not that comfortable with doing so. It's just not him. This could be true even if he was initiating regularly when you were dating or even early on in the marriage. They only do it in the beginning of the relationship because that's the social norm. It's expected for men to initiate all things sex. Get him in the mood. If this is the case, the onus here falls on you to take charge. I think that instead of thinking the man has to be responsible for the eroticism and the man has to be responsible for the initiation of sexual intimacy, I think you just take control of it. It's up to you to make time and to say we have a little date on Saturday night. It's up to you to create an erotic space, to set the scene or even bring in some erotic literature. Although it might not feel fair, if you want to have a fulfilling sex life and your partner isn't an initiator, this might be the role you have to fill. And it can be kind of fun taking the lead, so experiment. Learn all over again what turns both of you on. You never know. It may just get the blood pumping for both of you. Number 6. He has a low sex drive. It's totally normal for a man's sex drive to simply decrease over time. Many of my male clients are reporting lower sex drives in general. This could be the result of a shift towards technology, where sex no longer really requires the human touch, or due to testosterone levels decreasing from environmental factors. These guys are usually less interested in intercourse, but may still appreciate sensuality or giving pleasure to their partner. Get him in the mood. The key here is to find new ways to create a sexual experience with your partner. Engage him in a conversation about what his ideal conditions are for being sexual. Does he need relaxation? If yes, creating an ambient environment and perhaps a massage is best, or an erotic role play. If so, what would that look like? Find out what really turns him on. And my advice here is, don't shy away. All you have to do is discover a way to tap into the current of sexual energy. Once you do, you will never regret it. At the end of the day, almost every reason behind a loss of interest in sex by your partner can be addressed and remedied. But the important thing is to actually do the addressing. People end up in my office because of two things: avoidance and denial. That's why they end up in couples therapy, because you're not really dealing with an issue. You're avoiding it and postponing it and not dealing with it. And then it gets too long, too big. So I'd say, as soon as there's any kind of issue where either partner is feeling a lack of sexual intimacy, it needs to be addressed. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons and leave a comment below this video to let me know your thoughts. If you have any questions, please drop me a comment below this video to let me know what you would like to see next and what type of videos you want me to create for you. I will be able to respond back to you as soon as possible. Also, be sure to check out our other videos as well. Thanks for watching.